Hello. Uh, Normally, Randy's rant is done as a just a voice memo, but once again today I felt like in that it is a day that will live not in infamy but certainly in memory. July the 4th, 2021. Um, and this is the 4th of July that is minus the pandemic of last year to the most part, though it is still there, and that's another issue that's going to come. But I felt today, with so much of what has transpired in America in the last year, that well, I say something about the 4th of July. There's been some banter on Facebook of whether we should celebrate the 4th of July, and I'll get to that in a minute. But, 250 years or better ago, a white slave owner said that we hold these truths to be self evident that all men are created equal. That man was Thomas Jefferson. And, many years later, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. used the same quote in one of his last speeches. So this question, celebrate or not, and the value of those words that all men are created equal, sort of have really challenged African Americans of all shades, colors, shapes, sizes, political. Do I really belong in this country, and should I really celebrate the 4th of July? Well, 250 years ago, most Americans today do not know, white or black, that the first person to die for the revolution was a part black, part Indian runaway slave named Crispus Attucks. That's Crispus Attucks. And you will learn a lot by just Googling that name and surprise yourself. But I'm sure there are many of you who are aware of Mr. Attucks and his contribution to be the first to die in the cause of the revolution. America is very complex in terms of the African American experience. Quite recently, a young black Olympic track star did not want to honor the nation's Star Spangled Banner for reasons given because of the third paragraph in the Star Spangled Banner by Mr. Keats, who is pretty much a bona fide racist, talks about the blood of slaves and just basically being dispatched with no right to be in this country. In the course of history, uh, before social media and all of the yuckity yuck, there were these people that we looked to really bring us insight into our history, and they were called historians. And so there have been previous ones that are have been considered preeminent as historians in American history. The first, obviously, is the great Theodore White, who wrote mostly the American history story in most textbooks. And then there was Dr. John Hope Franklin, who wrote basically the African American history book, From Slavery to Freedom. And since then, there have been others, but just recently I was able to hear two of currently our most preeminent historians, and actually really three, uh, not to not include Miss Annette Gordon Reed, who has written many historical novels. But the two prominent that come to mind are Doris Goodwin and John Meacham. Miss Gordon, for years, has written books on the American presidency and what it stands for. And Mr. Meacham recently completed a book that really addresses the issue of what John Lewis stood for regarding voting and the sort of onward forward in terms of voting as a way of. Lyndon Johnson said that LBJ said that voting was the most important right, because without the ability to vote, the other rights don't mean anything. So back to Miss Goodwin and Miss Garvin. Miss Goodwin makes a comment that FDR was once told that if the New Deal worked, he would be the most famous president in history. But if the New Deal didn't work, he'd be considered the worst president in history. And FDR responded by saying, no, if the New Deal doesn't work, there won't be another presidency. John Meacham, as I indicated, is one of the nation's most preeminent historians, and he has said that on this 4th of July, we are regressed back to 1850. He described basically a group of people, primarily the Republican Party, as dedicated minorities found home in a Republican Party who have turned the party into a religion. Doris Goodwin, quote, says, voting is what we must do. The Civil War changed laws, but it didn't change hearts. And as Meacham has said, the soul of all persons is not good or bad, but we are in an arena of contention where we have now divided ourselves as people in other states are somehow not our fellow Americans, but enemies to be watched. And Democrats are people who could not possibly have the same allegiance to this country as possibly the Republicans could. Professing equality is hollow if your goal is to restrict the right to vote because too many black and young people voted in 2020 like never before. The Southern Democrat loss in 1850 led to the pro-slavery states seceding from the Union and the inevitable coming of the Civil War. In 2020, the Southern Democrats are ironically Republicans who lost the White House, the House, and the Senate, and on 1/6/20 wanted to stop the certification of a U.S. election. The first time since 1850. And on January 6, 2021, I saw a man walk through my capital, our capital, with a Confederate flag. It is possibly the most disheartening thing, and I've seen a lot of disheartening stuff happen in America that I've ever seen. It was the greatest disrespect to this nation. In his farewell address, George Washington warned the nation about choosing your party over the good of the nation. Doris Goodwin quotes someone who's told FDR about the need to work within the New Deal and that he would be the last president. And so, once again, to reiterate Lyndon Johnson, how important voting rights are on this 4th of July. We must vote. It is one of the processes to vote because of our parents' legacy of not being able to vote, and voting for our children's future is the process. I wonder what Crispus Attucks would say today on July the 4th, 2021. Or for that matter, what would Thomas Jefferson and Martin Luther King say? I know George Washington said nation over party. For those African Americans who wonder, should they at least grill some hot dogs, not ribs? Remember Crispus Attucks, who literally took a bullet for all of us Americans. Democracy is not gang-banging or set tripping, which is what we're currently involved in with all of us in our country. African Americans, white Americans, today, tell your kids about Crispus Attucks in between the beer, hot dogs, and FaceTime. God bless America, and peace be with you all.